All systems nominal.
それでは早速全速前進
You wanna know what the weak point of a mech is? The fucking pilot.
Get away from her, you bitch!
His papers say he was a raven.
Protocol 3.
A pattern blue!
Welcome to On the Shoulders of Giants, a giant robot power hour discussing mechs across media, their stories, and why we love them. I'm Nico, and I'm joined by Alice.
I signed up for CBT, and there were a lot more latency issues than I thought there would be.
And Brian.
I got to dip a nude muscle man into a vat of presumably hair gel in this game. So
that's a 10 out of 10 for you, huh?
Yeah.
This time around, we're discussing OSG's bold foray into the thriving industry of games journalism. We got code for the closed beta test of the most anticipated game of, Synduality Echoes of Ada, and we're ready to tell you all about it. Let's launch into it.
Video games. They seem to have captured America's imagination. What you see here is part of a national phenomenon that we call high-tech wreck. A phenomenon that had to happen when the TV set married the computer.
Why do you write some of your best stuff for the worst things?
It's how I thrive best. All right, for the listeners, this is a fun little bonus episode. Bonus! Because as mentioned, we did get code for this game that is, I don't want to say based on the really horrible anime that Alice made us watch, in conjunction with part of the IP.
A really horrible anime is based on this unreleased game.
Yeah.
Remember the...
But we got code for it, so we wanted to do a quick bonus episode talking about our impressions of the game while they're still relatively fresh. So to go ahead and get us started, what were y'all's first impressions?
Can you believe this is the second mech game we've covered?
Shit, it really is. We did Armored Core 1 and then this.
Metal Gear. Hello?
Oh, Metal Gear. Thank God for Metal Gear.
Metal Gear is more than a video game. Brian, you go first. I want to hear your take.
So yeah, I guess actually that's fair because I definitely am pretty sure I'm a lot cooler on this game than either of y'all.
Ooh.
My first impression was the character model was like really awkward. I mean, for making a waifu, they look pretty good, but the male character model is like really, really like...
Second thought.
It's like so, it is literally a rectangle. Like the hip width and the shoulder width are like, it looks really awkward. There are some costumes that like are... I can't look at it. It doesn't look like anything like a human proportion. It looks like fucking Gumby. Honestly. That was my like first impression of it because
who my Gumby heads in the house? Where my Gumby heads at?
As of the beta at least, this game is basically two things. Mini game about menus and a short foray into a slightly open world is my impression.
Oh, that's a great launching off point. Alice, is this game better or worse than Starfield?
Ooh, that is...
It's game journalism.
It is.
So there are going to be people who listen to this who don't obviously know video games or like what this is. So I want to just top down.
Yeah.
This is an extraction shooter. What that means is you choose a loadout, you deploy to a little map, you go and you do stuff, and then you try to escape without dying. Because if you die, you lose everything you brought out there, and you usually have to pay a penalty. The idea is like short burst roguelike all over, and you can save stuff, and there's different ways to play. The entire premise is you are the robot. I know you're a pilot in the robot, but you never see the pilot. Mm-hmm. And then you have your Magus who floats next to you and gives you little sassy weather reports and tells you when they hear sounds, which you can also hear, which is just great. And the idea is you are playing the pilot in the mech and going out and doing whatever you want. And then you go back and, as Brian said, the most important part, the mini games. You click through menus to accept things, to get materials to go to other menus, and click things to advance meters and make bars and numbers go up and slightly incrementally increase your power. Simple, right? All that to say, the main plot line of Starfield, spoilers for Starfield if you're ever going to play it, is bad. The main plot line of this game is bad. Do I care more about the characters in Echoes of Ada, of which I have had a weekend with? Yes. Yes, I do. You want to know why? Because my companion, my Magus, wasn't giving me shit for everything I was doing. My Magus was like, yeah, you want to kill those other people? Kill those other people and take their stuff. I don't give a shit. Do you know what that bitch in Starfield did? She said, how dare you not have my exact moral compass? I'll still marry you. I don't know what we're doing here, Todd, Howard. Okay. Answer your question. I think it's better, but that's not a high bar.
See, I was worried about not having enough content for this episode. I should have known if I could just compare it to Starfield, we would get there. Like, we would get there.
As someone who hasn't played Starfield either, I'm sure it's a riveting comparison, but I found it I will say I found it about as interesting as Starfield, which is I was pretty much good after about an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, there's kind of the skill you need. What skill is there in what you're doing?
I have one major thing about it that's really turning me off, and that's mostly what I have.
Let me lay out a few more things, and then I'll give my first impressions too. So, yeah, Alice pointed out, I kind of dived right into this, but Synduality Echoes of Ada, as Alice said, is an extraction shooter. It's definitely, I think it is trying to do a very specific thing, and as we talked about on our Synduality episode, the major thing it's trying to do is create a cross-media IP, thing that Bandai can then, make money off of.
We're trying to do Gundam 2.
We're trying to do Gundam 2. This time it's sort of cyberpunk. Notably less cyberpunk in the game than it was in the show, which was definitely Edge Runners-y. So you go in and the first thing you're doing, you're with a I couldn't help but think of her as the lady at the DMV who does your exam for your driver's license. There's just a generic Magus. You're doing a test to see if you're good enough to be a drifter with the association.
Wait. There's one very important thing that comes before that.
Yeah.
And it's an informational video.
Yeah, that's true. There's an informational video, and it gives you a rundown on drifters, cradle coffins, which is the name for the mechs in this, Magus, which is the name for your AI robot companion that basically acts as an interface between you and your cradle coffin. And as Alice said, gives you weather updates. This will be important later. It gives you a rundown on the world, on the end of the world, on how the rain sucks so much, and there is a promotional mascot. I think it's a pretty charming little introductory video.
Very cute.
Yeah, I think...
and it definitely... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you want a decent grasp on the world state, the rules of the fiction and everything are the same as the show. And I do think this episode of the podcast is meant to be kind of latched on to the other one. So while we have talked mega shit about that show, I think that episode of the podcast is really good because there were things that we really liked, and that the things that we liked are what we started this podcast about. So
yeah,
just I think if you haven't listened to that, go listen to that and then come back and listen to this, because I think there's background info that that we won't want to relitigate for 2 hours, but is there.
And we'll wait.
Yeah, we'll wait.
Yeah, we'll wait here. How long is that episode?
2 hours.
We should probably give it 2:15 so they can grab water, maybe a bathroom break. Okay.
No, Brian makes a good point. Definitely check out the Synduality episode. I think it's an all-timer as far as, God, this show really pushed us to our limits, but oh God, the mechs are really cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, is definitely a core struggle we were thinking about when we made this podcast. But I think the game does a better job of giving you the info that you need on the world to be interested in the world story. I think that. I felt more engaged by this than by the anime, where it felt so much of what it set up in episode 1, it was subverting every time it wanted to do a fan service episode. And this game obviously is not as... The fan service comes elsewhere in this game. But as far as the tutorial segment, as far as the splash screens that you get on loading screens that have little paragraph blurbs about the world, it definitely does a better job of outlining the history of the world, its stakes, and how its different systems interact with each other.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. But yeah, the basic premise, you're doing your driver's test as a drifter to join the association. In the tutorial, you go through all the basic mechanics, heading out into the world, dealing with the elevator. There is an elevator mechanic. going out with your Magus, seeing what skills your Magus has versus the skills that you have, dealing with battery life, a whole bunch of stuff we'll talk about in more detail. And then you, of course, pass, because if you failed, there wouldn't be a video game. And they dump you in God's worst fucking desolate warehouse. And then, yeah, most of the game seems to center on upgrading your warehouse and all your various gewgaws that go in your warehouse. Unfortunately, I wouldn't know much about it. My experience with the game and my first impressions were definitely marred by the fact that this game's graphics, and I assume its memory as well, were not optimized really to any extent. Like, I mean, they gave...
Yeah, this was a beta.
Yeah, it's a beta, so you have to be...
This is a very rough beta.
And they gave specs and stuff, but like, I, for the record, have a Steam Deck. I haven't been at the point where I can upgrade to a really fancy gaming computer. I built mine 10 years ago, so it runs a lot of things on medium settings. There was no way. I had no luck running the beta on my computer. So I switched to my Steam Deck to try to run it. I did get through the tutorial. I got through some initial stuff, and then after that, it was unplayable, which is why I'm emceeing on this. But what I saw initially, I honestly kind of liked. So let's get into it, and I'll elaborate more on that as we go through.
Yeah.
Hey, Nico here in the break. Just wanted to let you know that while this is a podcast, and we'll always do our best to describe visuals we're commenting on, we'll also include links to the mechs and images we discuss in the show notes, and post actual photos on our show website. Along with that, make sure to check the show notes for content warnings as appropriate to the episode. That's all for now. Back to the show. So the first item I kind of had here was the offline tutorial. What did y'all think of the tutorial, the story setup, structure, the mechanics it introduced, and your initial, like, feeling for the mech in the game?
Always give me an option to skip the tutorial games. I played video games.
But then you wouldn't know about the weather.
It was kind of cute. I mean, are we getting into the mechanics yet? Mm-hmm. Or is that kind of a later? Okay.
No, go for it.
Okay. Here's what they do to kind of manage you, right? Everything is based on your stats, and one of those stats is battery life. You can only be out for 15 minutes, or your Magus or your mech dies or whatever. And they teach you this among with everything else like crouching and jumping, and it's fine. It feels good. That's something I want to say up top. I thought the tutorial was a tutorial of all time. It introduced some mechanics, but it kept enough. Like, it doesn't explain everything, like Magus versus Magus stuff and all of that. Feels really good. I don't know. I just can't get over, I liked how it felt a lot. Mm-hmm. Except for on the first suit, and I don't think you can ever upgrade it enough. So in the show, and we'll reference that episode, again, we waited for you. They drift constantly. They are constantly vrooming around. In this one, you have a sprint mechanic that is your vrooming around. It is so annoying to just constantly be jolting out of it because it has this very loud sound effect and the world jolts and it's not smooth. I would rather just a low-grade sprint so it always looks like I'm moving around because you're either walking, chunk, 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 or gliding. Mm-hmm. And that really, I didn't like that. Brian, what about you?
Yeah, that was going to be my main thing is like, I'm kind of down on how it feels to play this game.
So valid.
I'm like kind of in this weird push and pull space with this because on one hand, I don't necessarily want this to be like Armored Core, which is a very fast, like you are literally just rocket boosting everywhere. I think it depends on the mech you're piloting, but overall, Armored Core is a much faster game.
I was about to say, with your experience with Armored Core 6, I mean, how does it feel compared to that? I mean,
it just feels like dog shit compared to Armored Core 6 to me. And that's because it's so much slower. And like, I would be like, oh, okay, that's not what this game is interested in, I guess, in the sense of like the general like day-to-day controls. But you're having me, presumably when the full game comes out, there'll be more people playing and more people will be more aggressive. I have to assume it'll be a little bit more like a PUBG situation where you're also having to deal with constant, gunfire and shit.
Yeah.
But this, to me, like the tutorial, I was immediately extremely bummed because like Alice said, in the anime, they are like fucking zip-zopping everywhere.
Yes.
Shooting each other with like chain whips and axes and shit. I don't have any of that.
Doing giant jumps and ramping.
I am like literally just kind of stomping around trying to hit people in the head. Like it feels okay to shoot, but it got so bored. Like by the end of the tutorial, I was like, oh, okay, I'm good. I want to do something else now. Like, it was not for me.
And like melee weapons, right? Like in the show, they're like punching and kicking. There's no melee attack button in this game.
There is.
We learned that.
Bullshit.
We learned
There is.
that.
I had to tell Brian that. Because I had got that tutorial.
Things the tutorial didn't give you.
You have like a little Assassin's Creed blade like on your arm, but like that is not a customizable
But let me get a
part.
sword. Let me get a katana. Let me get a battle axe. Let me beat the.
I want a heat axe.
It didn't. Something what I felt playing this, and I can never admit this to anybody in my life that I've ever touched Tarkov. I'm not one of those people. I'm sorry. This is coming exactly in the era of Tarkov and extraction shooters being like hot and in a like they've peaked. We're in the downward trend of extraction shooters, and like if you were to make these just army dudes who have like a little talking robot, wouldn't feel any different. The mech part of this, besides the scale I really liked, but the mech part of it did not feel like mech.
I agree. And
like,
that's part of the...
It just felt like you were a dude.
That's part of the thing, too, is it's like, I don't feel like I'm moving like a super machine that has to be piloted by a super AI and a human. I feel like a guy walking around in a clunky power suit. Like this, it made me less attracted to the mechs overall in the franchise, because I feel like the way they were throwing themselves around and gesticulating and like doing all this crazy shit in the anime was like why I liked them so much. And them being like these little guys with chicken legs, and I'm like, I can barely even jump. Like that's just nothing to me.
Yeah, you can barely jump. You can't, there's no way to climb over a chest high wall. And it's like, this is really and like sense of scale kind of goes off the rails too, because like you're in a cradle coffin, which we've established in our episode. We waited for you to listen to it. About 10 meters tall, right?
They're not terribly large, but yeah,
they're not huge, but they're giant hulking metal machines. There are parts in this, and they encourage you to do this, to like go up giant robot-sized staircases to find loot boxes. You're looting in this. You're finding containers as a giant mech, opening them and digging through them. Your Magus isn't doing shit, but you're like, I literally was climbing up on top of things and getting into small rooms, and everything is sized to you. Every door is your size.
Yeah.
And I get it, but also it makes the sense of scale nothing burger.
Yeah.
Also, every vehicle you see is a giant road warrior tank. There is no like regular sized car. There's one like worker robot that you see sometimes, and it's just always static in the same position, just copy pasted around, and everything's copy pasted. For the record, there's 2 maps, right?
Yeah.
You have to unlock one of them, and it's the same map, and they're not giant. Like, you can get across them in 5 minutes.
Yeah, and I think it's funny. I think I actually came off warmer on this game despite the fact I did not get to play very much of it, which honestly may be correlated. Like, I may not have gotten exposed to it enough. It may have been so tantalizing in my inability to play it that I have a warmer impression of it. But I don't have any experience with Tarkov. I don't have a lot of experience with extraction shooters. What this brought to mind for me more was Armored Core in a sense, because of the parts and the menus and the moving pieces. But of course, as I stated in our Armored Core episode, we'll also pause to let you listen to that one.
Welcome back.
Yeah, no, the only one of those I've played is the PS1. I have not played Armored Core 6. I haven't played anything more recent than the PS1 game. And definitely what I was thinking of more as I entered this game was Destiny 1 specifically, because that's the game I have more experience with. And I was thinking of Horizon Zero Dawn, right? Because there's definitely, so much of the flavor of this game is post-apocalypse. So much of why you're looting stuff is recovery. Like, there's scarce resources, you're trying to find energy resources.
And to be clear, it is a beautiful game in that sense.
Oh, it's so pretty. The biomes are so cool. They have alien biomes. Everything is very built. Like, I do love some of, like,
but I feel
it was
like
pretty and...
I feel like this is where the tension is, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, I feel like the mechanics it's trying to set up are for an extraction shooter, something faster paced, and something that, again, like when there are more players in a server, is going to be more aggressive, things like that. The mechanics are looking at that, but everything else, the story, the map, literally the maps in the sense of like, I watched Brian stream to me about an hour of gameplay, and I was watching Brian try to navigate, and it's so frustrating because like you feel like there's a sense of urgency because you've got all these timers going, right? You've got your battery timer. If it's raining, you have your durability as a timer.
Oh my fuck. Yeah.
You know, your ammo is a timer. Part of the reason I think you do not have any more dedicated melee than just like a pistol butt maneuver is because the ammo is also a limiting factor that they're exerting on you to shorten your run on the surface, right? And if they had a reliable melee weapon, as we established in our episode on All You Need Is Kill, we'll pause to let you listen to that one. Melee weapons don't run out of bullets.
Yeah.
So you could just keep going. So that limiting factor would be removed. But I think there's a tension between the mechanics they've set up and the storytelling in the game world that they've set up that I think invites a slower paced contemplation that would be more in line with the way you move.
I want to talk about your Destiny poll because I think that's actually really interesting. I know you brought it up when I was streaming to you, but I hadn't really thought about it in the respect of like, because I had latched on to Destiny 1. I actually have Destiny dark fact about me.
Ooh, we got some lore.
Destiny 1 may be one of my most played games of my life because it was just how it's just like League for me, where it's just like it was how I spent time with friends.
Yeah.
But the core difference is this game feels like Destiny if there was only one class and it had absolutely no mobility tools.
Yeah.
Like one of the things about Destiny that's amazing is to be able to glide and teleport and jump and like telekinesis your way across this crazy world. And you know, being on a timer and feeling so slow are two things that I don't, just for me, are not a vibe.
Also the sense of distance because you are a mech, like it's me being a kilometer from the elevator. Also, you extract via an elevator where everybody goes underground. That's
and also,
the whole shtick.
Completely arbitrarily, some elevators are elevators you can use and some are not. Like
and it's random when you spawn in.
I hate that.
It'll tell you like, oh, these are your escape ones. It's very Tarkov. Not that I would have ever played that game. Just to be clear.
But no, the reason I pulled in Destiny is not so much because like there's so many things that Destiny does well and have been talked about at length. Gun feel, like you said, like mobility, verticality, like your speed, the way the different classes work. I was thinking more so like Nico Deep Lore. When Destiny came out, we had just gotten a PS4, and it was a game that my very brave spouse was playing a lot with their then boyfriend, and he was hyper competitive at the time. He was like really into it. And I kind of wanted to feel included in the conversation, but I was obviously only playing when they weren't playing. So I did a lot of solo play, and like my whole thing was I wanted to get through all of the story of Destiny so I could talk to him about it. This was before there were any expansions. So I put 17 hours into Destiny, finished the entire story, and was kind of bummed out. But what I enjoyed most was showing up at places like the Russian Cosmodrome and like the different like planets you would visit. And then in Destiny 2, when I played briefly like Earth or the Moon or something, and why I pulled Horizon Zero Dawn in this, I love the way that people conceptualize an advanced sci-fi apocalypse. And I like exploring those spaces. And so I actually had a lot of fun in Destiny, not like playing the game, but more like doing those grindy fetch quests that everyone hated, where it was like, go kill 5 this, and you'd just like move around the world, and you had your little ghost that was floating around, and sometimes making little quips or comments, and at one point voiced by Peter Dinklage, giving absolutely nothing. And like, I really enjoyed that. And I'm kind of an Ubisoft gamer. I like when I have a big map and there's a bunch of stuff in it that I have to collect. I collected everything in Horizon Zero Dawn, like everything, all the metal flowers, all the mugs, everything. Like,
so here's where this game is going to work for me because I need that game. And I think a lot of people do, the game where you can kind of turn your brain off and check off lists.
Yeah, podcast game.
And that's my segue into what this game excels at. I want to talk about the dating sim. So,
yes,
I made a wife in this game. Some might call it a waifu. I loved the menu system. I love the customization of the mechs. I could see myself getting into that in like a chill way. But I really just love, you can collect materials to update the bathroom so your Magus can go take a shower.
Yeah, you remember
in Synduality
Noir, the very crucial shower scene? Don't worry, that gameplay is present.
Oh, and so I played with the female Magus.
I wanted to compare this. Okay, please tell me about this.
It's Seal, so that's it. She's your big tittied Ara One-chan. She's here to tell you did a great job out there today. She's so excited to help you. Wow.
Yeah, the vibe on the male Magus when I was watching Brian play was definitely different.
I definitely have to assume that the dialogue is the same, but
just different reads, probably.
I don't think it is. I think it's slightly different because they did kind of play up when you picked the gender of your Magus that like one had like certainly, I think the female Magus was described as having like kind of a spunkier personality or like a more sarcastic personality. And the masculine Magus was described as being more like supportive and kind of like,
I do not remember that.
Fatherly, but like, yeah, it was like flavor text on the side.
But the weird part is those are your choices. For Magus personality. Yeah. And then you can go into pretty big depth on, I mean, it's not a great character customization. Like, the scales aren't great.
There are sliders.
There are sliders. We got sliders.
They let me put makeup on the male Magus, I will say, which was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, and then, but you can't change the voice. It's not like Monster Hunter, which I thought this was going to be Monster Hunter. I'm going to level with you. And it has a lot of Monster Hunter vibes. But here's where the sickness is going to have. So this was the closed beta. So everything's unlocked and everything is geared towards giving you a lot of rewards very fast so you can test things. It's going to really play out in the game because I had every clothing item unlocked and there's not that many. And if I play this game and those aren't already unlocked and they're behind a paywall or grinding, and also like I could see them being very sick with letting me buy little dress up clothes for them. Like, there could be a sickness here, but also like the lack of choice, because I played pretty deep into this closed beta and got a lot of money and upgraded a bunch of stuff. And at no point did I feel like, oh, this is a breadth of content. Is that right? Breadth with a D?
Yeah.
A breadth of content. It was like, I mean, Brian, maybe you felt it too, but I like, especially in like movement and gameplay style, you hit walls very fast in this. And it's like, oh, I know exactly what this production facility mini game is going to be.
As soon as I was getting little missions that was like, bring back 5 of a lead pipe, I was like, this is not for me.
Meanwhile, I was watching Brian do this and have a bad time and going, oh, I wish I could play it. I love bring back 5 lead pipe.
To speak of the strength of this side of the game, I did enjoy, I do like clean up your space, make little home. I do like that one.
It is very cute. And I can see how there could be a lot of layers to it.
Yeah, in the beta you can only get to like level 1 of anything, which in the bathroom is a barrel and a stool.
It's literally like they sweep.
Yeah.
Like the walls are still falling down.
When I tell you they gave you God's most godforsaken warehouse, they really did.
So here's my question. So this is supposed to be an underground society. Why are we in a warehouse that's overgrown with plants?
Don't worry about it.
Where in the underground society is this?
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Just don't worry about it.
Okay. Anyway, continue, Brian. You're on a roll.
So like part of my like hope for a full game is just I want to be able to like I'm really hoping there's like a place couch type shit mechanic in here. Like I really want to decorate.
Fuck
and, like,
yeah.
Let me decorate my little house that would have my shit so in there. I would be obsessed.
If you were letting me move couch, I would bring back 5 lead pipe. I'll say that right now. But I wasn't seeing any immediate reward that was like satisfying to me for doing that stuff.
I would bring back 5 lead pipe. So true.
And then, you know, I'd go out, try to find some stuff and like hope that whatever I was looking for was out there. And it just like almost never was. And it was just like, I don't know.
It's very much the like, you have to know where in the map lead pipe spawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to know what like a lead pipe thing to search through looks like or get it in a random container.
In my modern mind has been poisoned by wait till community posts that shit online. So I like was really struggling with that.
It's interesting. So I think one thing we can talk about around the Magus is that like, yeah, there's definitely a component of like dress up doll. Like the fact that there even is a masculine option, I was low-key surprised by. Like, I know that there is in the anime, but like, I don't know. It felt like they were shooting at a specific demographic, but like you said,
it felt Bandai. Bandai usually gives the option in a lot of their media and their franchises. Some of their most popular like non-Gundam stuff is geared towards like a hot guy market,
Okay,
you know, like
that makes sense.
ooh, sexy guy. And like some shows, like they've tried with that. And then once they add a female character, the audience triples. So it is weird that they, I mean, I'm glad they did it.
But getting back to the Magus and stuff, so like there's the aesthetics of it, and it's interesting because again, like you don't really have an embodied character. You have your cradle coffin and you have your Magus, but it was almost funny. It was almost like, okay, it would be a bridge too far to have you design 3 things. Right? Like you design your character, you design your Magus, and then you buy and find parts for your cradle coffin.
Yeah.
It was almost like they were like, okay, this would be too much. Whereas like, do you know the money I would pay in the world to just like see a little character that I made hanging out with another little character I made when I got to place the couch?
Exactly. That is such the vibe.
If I could just run around in my little mech hanger that I decorated and placed couch, like I collected so many lead pipe, I could place so many couch. And my Magus girlfriend is
One
there.
of the things that Final Fantasy 15 did extremely well. That game is, I mean, if you're not in the Final Fantasy community, that game is really divisive for being, frankly, a sopping piece of shit in most areas.
I'm sorry, Corey. Corey, I know you're listening. I'm sorry.
Corey knows. Brian has said this to Corey's face.
But one of the things they did really, really well is they put 4 extremely well realized characters who have who have like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dynamic dialogue, like idle interactions with each other, and made you watch them sit in a car for like, you know, minutes at a time. And that stuff was really, really fun to watch. And I want that for me and my Magus and my homies in the warehouse, underground bunker, hangout, chill spot, mech lab, whatever the fuck this is supposed to be.
Honestly, even just while piloting, because it is very like having someone speak at you without having your own voice. Like Gordon Freeman perfected the silent protagonist. We don't need to keep doing it, guys.
Yeah. But I will say, on the topic of, like, you hanging out with your Magus and your homies, I mean, something we can't avoid talking about, I don't think, is that, like, your Magus is a part, basically, and that means you can get multiple Maguses, and you can find other, I guess, magi.
Create some sort of
in the world.
harem.
Alice, I think you're the only one who encountered this. Yeah, like, what was your experience with having multiple magi?
I want to talk about my greatest experience in this game as the lead up to this. So this is where I would never play Tarkov. But if I did, I was a PvP piece of shit. I was a little rat in my little gutter coming up, being like a little scab piece of shit ratting around. But I would never play Tarkov. But so when you're going around, your Magus will alert you to things in the environment. Hey, there's a rainstorm coming, which is a major mechanic. You have to go hide inside. It's kind of cute.
It is kind of cute, yeah.
Or they'll be like, I hear sounds, or like, hey, somebody's digging that owl crystal, or like, hey, I hear Magus engines, because we all still work on diesel. And depending on the engine sound, she'll identify if it's an NPC or a player. So there were a couple of occasions where I ran across players and was a great, wonderful community member. If you mine owl crystals, they aren't linked to you, and anybody driving by can just spam F and pick them up and then run away. And you get in trouble for initiating PvP by shooting them, even if they stole all your owl crystals. So jot that down, comma. You can also pull other players to enemy Magus. So there are a bunch of, they call Magus hunters around. And they call Magus hunters because they hunt other coffins to steal their Magus, right?
These are like boss NPCs, is basically.
Boss NPCs.
Yeah.
So they have regular people who are just out and they'll fight you, but that's it. They'll just take your loot. But these people specifically come and steal your Magus. And they will do this if you're not a good gamer like me. I don't like that line read.
Which means that you're one of them.
I'm one of them.
Alice is a boss level NPC.
Yeah.
I'm a boss level NPC. Everyone remember this. So I came across I had kited another player character by like, oh, look at me. I'll be your little heel slut. Guided him over. They died to the Magus killer. And the Magus killer glitched out on some of the NPCs do not have really good animations like the Enders do, the little alien fuckers.
Yeah.
I like how they move. But the Magus ones, they cannot navigate this environment at all. So I glitched one, and I killed his 3 little buddies because they come in groups, which is damage in this, Magus versus Magus. I'm not sure how much of that you did, Brian. It goes fast. You drop fast in this game. Spamming healing is like a real thing, and you do have to stop everything to heal, and like health management, and there's no regen over time. You have your armor, that's it, right?
Well, I had a healing Magus, so I actually did have a heal over time.
Nice.
Oh, can we talk about the stupidest mechanic?
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about there are Magus types.
It's so dumb.
I mean,
it's
that's
you can pick. The funniest one to me, frankly, is the Weatherman. You can pick a Magus type that specifically just gives you better in-depth information on weather.
You get little rain clouds on your mini-map showing you where the rain clouds are coming.
There's Larry from Pokemon looking ass. Actually, that would rip. If this game comes out and I do get it, I am gonna make Larry from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet as an Magus. That's such a good idea.
That would be incredibly fucking
just
good.
Just have
like, looking at the clouds.
Yeah.
But yeah, your Magus can have different support capabilities or offensive capabilities and stuff. So I know for a fact, Brian, you chose the like healing and repair one.
I chose healing.
And Alice, you chose the fuck motherfuckers up. I've never played Tarkov. Don't look at me PvP version.
Right.
It gives you a stun lock that works against any enemy type, not just Magus, even though it's not supposed to.
So anyway, this experience you had where you killed an innocent person and took their loot.
So well, he died not by my hand. I took his loot because I wanted it to go somewhere. And then I killed the Magus Hunter. Now, I don't know if this was just cranked up, but I opened him and he had 4 of the highest rarity Magus in there.
Oh my god.
So they were the like ancient era, like type 0 ones, the Adas, if you will. That's one for the real Synduality homies. What is that? And so I took them, and you can just open your menu at any time and swap things out, weapons, guns. I would hot swap weapons in the game, which is a very fun thing to do. But you could also swap your Magus.
You hot swap your waifus.
I hot swapped my waifu. And so I got this NPC-looking motherfucker who sounded exactly like my Magus. No different voice lines, same personality. But she did have a different type. So her type was the fuck up Enders version. So by hot swapping her, I could then fight the Enders. But she took an inventory slot, right? So I had all 4. They took inventory slots. So you could see a world where like you take multiple Magus out with you and hot swap them. Mm-hmm. If you don't have one equipped, your mech does not move at all.
No. I have more experience on this because let me tell you, I had so many connection issues, and during the closed beta, I don't know if this will be changed, but this seems to be part of the roguelike mechanic. When you die, or say if you have a very unstable connection and your game keeps crashing, you lose everything, and not just like all of your loot that you had just picked up, all of your mech parts and your Magus. And your Magus comes back after a set period looking fucking electrocuted. Their shit is... They have got dirt all over them. Their hair is all fucked up. Like, it's a cute little detail, but if they don't come back within a period of time, say you're repeatedly trying to connect and try to play this fucking game, you maybe just try to run a sortie without a Magus, and let me tell you, there's visual glitches, there's a visual overlay issue, you move worse, you can run a sortie, technically, and I guess this must be their stopgap, like, if your Magus gets taken. Because normally the mechanic, if you lose it, it comes back after a certain period of time. But in this case, like if you do not have a Magus, it was interesting to me that there was such a pronounced difference in the feel of the game. But again, I feel like this is a place where we're haunted by having a lack of a player character, because there's just like no reaction to the difficulty that this presents other than your personal frustration. Anyway, that was my experience a lot.
Well, to go with that, that's great, and that's what I would expect, but how the game normally feels is how it should feel without a Magus. If I have a Magus in there, I should be rip-shitting Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2.
That's a great idea, actually. That is how it should be.
Oh my god, can you imagine grinding rails in these mechs? They're perfect for it, right? Like,
yes, I can, and I should be able to every day of my life. Hello?
I do think it's interesting you can have multiple magi. Brian, did you have any experience with this or
No.
Okay, then really briefly I just want to touch on this does unfortunately underline the issue we had in the anime where it's like we are on Star Wars robot rules. There's a weird question of slavery and like buying and selling humanoid looking things that have personalities and like it feels bad.
It feels bad.
I sold each for 20,000 credits.
20,000 credits!
Each ancient magus was worth 20,000 credits, and you know what I bought with that? A slightly less dirty bathroom for my girlfriend.
That undercuts like the weird ideology of like these are people that is so like surface level present in the show, but not explored at all. That's so weird.
It is super
And I would think this game called Echoes of Ada, and I mean, well, I guess we'll have to see if there's even a plot in this. Like,
I didn't see an echo of her, it must be said.
I mean, I guess every girl one is supposed to be an echo. I don't know, but really, like, it's weird to name a game that when the Magus are such just mascot characters that give you abilities. Like,
it feels a little bit like Overwatch, where there's this like deep lore promise, but the platform and execution it's delivered on actually don't have any room for that, so it doesn't actually end up doing or meaning anything, like anything interesting.
Grim.
I love the Overwatch and the lore. I love Overwatch in videos and in comics and in writings.
I have no comment about that. I can talk about my favorite thing about that happened to me in the game, though.
Yes. Please.
Unfortunately, Nico didn't get to see this because it happened like 5 minutes after she had to log off.
It was incredibly funny. I did watch Brian stream for like an hour, just doing normal ass shit, and I was like, well, I think I've got a grasp on the game. I'm gonna go ahead and log off and run errands with my very brave spouse. And then Brian immediately had shit pop off.
Shit popped off. So yeah, a couple things that just to give background, I do actually really like how the enders look in the game compared to the anime. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different ones. They look a lot more like weird alien-y versus like reboot.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And in the environment, they're really creepy. Like, they blend in with some of them.
They're really, okay, they can be so creepy. So here's what happened. There's normally like dog-like ones and then big jellyfish-like ones. Like those are the most common ones.
Blorbin
around.
And every once in a while I thought you saw some of the tire ones that we saw in the anime.
I don't remember tire ones. There were like weird landmine ones that would rush you and explode.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah.
Those ones are cool.
I hate those ones just from like a difficult enemy standpoint. Anyway, I was like just walking around. I think I was actually I was making the foolish decision to go get one more like good-looking crystal before I went back to the elevator or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was walking across this lake and I saw a fucking cradle coffin just like disabled in the middle of the lake. Walked up to it, looted it. It let me loot it. I was like, I was in the middle of collecting loot when the motherfucker got up.
Oh shit!
And started firing at me, and it was fully one of the parasite enders from the fucking show.
God, they did it!
Oh, fuck. I cannot believe I missed that.
Yeah.
Oh, they did it!
And I was like, oh, fuck. And I like, I basically had to run away because the other thing that happened was another enemy type that I hadn't seen before attacked me, which was the Hydra, which is this big snake-like motherfucker that, of course, multiplies when you shoot at it. It was like really, really intense. And I like managed to get out. I am sad because I wish I had like gotten to complete it and like get all this stuff out of it, but I had to run away. And I would say that was probably like the most I felt like immersed. I know that's a divisive verb in the theory community.
That is,
it is.
But that's like what I kind of felt the most like, I don't know, in it. And even then I felt a little bit weighed down by the slowness of the controls, but it was a pretty good time. I did not know that the game was going to have that in it. That was a nice touch. It worked really well on me. It did exactly what you would think that would be supposed to do,
Yeah.
So that was really fun.
Yeah, that's great. I hate that I missed that. Because, I mean, I was interested in the Enders and seeing more of them, but obviously through what little I got to play, I basically only encountered kind of the dog type ones and then a few of they're called chasers, and I did just keep laughing.
Oh, they are called chasers.
And they kept coming after me.
I know. It was weird how when I saw Alice in the overworld, they would ignore me and they would only chase Alice. Weird. But that is one thing to be said, is you can't squad up currently, which was another thing that I felt really defeated about.
Yeah, really frustrating. I feel like this game with friends could be serviceable as a looter
That
shooter.
would bring it to a level I can tolerate. Listen, I play League of Legends.
So brave of you to admit that.
Yeah, it's really brave.
I can tolerate so much in the effort of hanging out.
Thank you for your service.
I did have another question about PvP, Alice. So obviously you did some little rat shit, and you went in and stole some shit, and you got shot at, and
Just a little rat. I'm just
yeah,
little,
you've done some stuff. So
guy.
there is a system of bounties, and there is a mechanic of association status. So like if you're a member who's never started any shit, you're considered like a member in good standing. But if you encounter a player who has engaged in PvP, you get like a warning if you're like a typical association member. Mm-hmm. So did you deal with any of the bounty stuff after your shenanigans, and like what was that like from that side?
You're not gonna tell anybody, right? Oh,
yeah.
Like you ain't a cop. You have to tell me.
This recording is purely just for us to listen back to because we're besties.
So I got a bounty. Here's the thing. I'm not sure if it's a beta test thing or an intentional thing, like it is in Tarkov, where it's hard to run across players, or they like blend in.
Not that you would know.
What?
Not that you would know, because you've never played Tarkov, so you wouldn't know.
Yeah, I would. Thank you for reminding me about my character trait that I've established now. I gotta keep on character.
The official OSG stance is that Alice has never played Tarkov.
So I did have it. I did have a bounty. I found that at least the players I came across did not want to engage, and you can pay off your bounty.
Huh.
So there is a mechanic in there to get back into good standing without, like, there's no jail time.
It is Starfield.
Yeah, but you can't do it during a mission, so that's the gate, is like if you were to play Tarkov, if you go rogue, everyone knows. If you've ever played The Division or The Division 2, you know a rogue agent, and it alerts people, like there are systems in place. So yes, I did get it, but I found that people hesitated to shoot first, which is their mistake. Bring an ambulance, but not for me.
I didn't understand. I don't know if I ran into any players because I never understood if it was...
You ran into one, which is how I could talk about this. So while I was watching you play, you ran into...
See, I did not know.
Another person who was piloting the basic bitch mech that you have, and we got a warning. The Magus on screen was like, hey, this is...
Oh, this was the one that I was jumping at.
Yeah,
Okay.
you did. It was a very funny encounter. You were trying to navigate the fucking geometries of this level. It was also trying to navigate, and we encountered them, and we got like a message on screen and also over audio that was like, "You've encountered an association member of somewhat dubious
Repute or something.
reputation." Yeah, that's what I was looking for. You've encountered an association member of dubious reputation, be on your guard or whatever. And so there was that kind of tense moment, especially because Brian, I don't think you'd encountered anyone else. And then Brian, of course, being the pro gamer, immediately started doing like little bunny hops to be like,
which is how you get out of getting killed. Yeah. Everybody knows it.
But also just because you cannot use emotes if you're not in the vicinity of another player. You can't even just test them out, which is wild. But like we couldn't. Yeah, Brian couldn't navigate to them quickly, so we did little hops and we were able to proceed in peace. But it was funny that you got that little warning.
Yeah, I mean, it's got, again, if this was just dudes, it would be the exact same game. Mm-hmm. I will say the UI is very pretty.
Yeah.
I like how they have the Magus tell you information that's ambient and stuff like that. It does get really annoying, especially like if you're near a person who's moving around. Obviously, a Magus isn't going to... a coffin is not going to stop moving. So you can come in and out of its sphere of influence, and every time you're in the circle, she gives you the warning of, I hear another Magus, or I hear another coffin.
Yeah.
And then she bops out and comes back in, and I hear another coffin. And you just keep going in and out of trees, especially if you keep running into each other. And same with enemies. Like, they're like, oh, there's an aerial type over there. And then you go away, and then it comes closer, and like, oh, there's an aerial type there. Like, what are we doing? I'm aware. Thank you. It's on my mini-map. We're good.
Yeah, it'd probably be best if you only got one of those, like, per encounter with a specific, either with a specific player or their specific enemy. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I think that's something they'll have to too.
I put it in my feedback.
Yeah.
I was like, it chirps too much at me.
Yeah.
It needs to call me cute and a good pilot.
Another thing I did like about it, though, speaking of just like the way the UI looked and stuff, was that when you successfully extract, you get a little like playback of like your map and like all the things you did on it.
I loved that.
Yeah, that was interesting.
It was really fun. And like, I usually skipped it, but I can totally see a scenario in which like I would want to go back and review something or like, you know.
Because the Magus gives you a play-by-play. She talks about the encounters you have.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I would say that's the best place to have the expression of the Magus's personality, because I definitely the vibe from Brian's Magus giving this breakdown was very much like you're
doing great, champ.
Your hockey coach. Yeah, it was really great.
Another cool thing related to that too is that like if you die in an area or do really bad in an area or like get super hurt in an area and you go back to that area and at a different drop, your Magus will also comment on like, oh, we've had a hard time in this area before, be careful.
Yeah, and or we'll report, there were a couple of times your Magus reported like many other association members have died in this area due to enders or due to like a Magus thief or whatever. Which was interesting. I like that diegetic relay of information.
Yes.
You know, it wasn't like there was text that popped up on your screen. Your little buddy, who was supposed to be like your battle intelligence assistant, was giving you battle intelligence, which was really cool.
Your little Magus gets wet in the rain. It's little.
Yeah, there's like a little animation where it pretends to like measure the rain. It's pretty cute. I think the only other thing I wanted to touch on, and we touched on it briefly previously, was the cradle coffins themselves. Mm-hmm. So your mech, the aesthetics, the feel, the parts, the systemization. I mean, one of the things I noticed, like the one you get to start is a big clunky, like it's
a clunky box.
Yeah, it's a big clunky box, but there were a lot of different aesthetics in play as you got like part upgrades, but I didn't necessarily see a lot of customization.
Yeah.
I didn't see any plaid cradle coffins.
That's my number one thing is like you get cool parts pretty easily and pretty immediately and they look pretty neat and they all do different stuff, which is, you know, that stuff is pretty nice. I have no complaints there, except for the fact that like, why the fuck do parts come with a predetermined paint job? Like, why can't I pick a fucking color?
Right? It was so weird.
That's not lit. That's not the vibe.
Unless it did feel limited. I feel like maybe not everything's in there as part of this.
And like, to be clear, also, again, to reiterate, we know this is a beta, but this is just, this is also the point of betas, is this
isn't an alpha.
Exactly. Everything that we've said are things that we put in our feedback, so...
But I do think that's an interesting thing, because, like...
Bandai reach out?
Like, obviously, only in my experience of Armored Core 1, but also seeing you post your builds from Armored Core 6, Brian, like, you could get disparate parts in terms of aesthetics, in terms of things that were rounded, or things that were blocky, or things that were wiry, or things that were armored. But when you were able to apply, like, a unified color scheme and everything to that, you could unify those parts in a way that, like, the parts in this definitely... I get the feeling there was more focus on like rolling out the parts and making sure that you could test things like we noticed and we only discovered after the fact, right? You got that set of arms that could only use energy weapons. Yeah. And like that created an ammo issue. Right, because we weren't running into that much energy ammo. We were just
and I had taken half. I had taken half physical ammo and half energy ammo, so I had a bunch of ammo that was useless to me, which was just like sad. I hadn't noticed that.
And so that's interesting. Like I think that supports doing a build, and so I feel like maybe they put more emphasis in terms of the.
That will be something that I am excited for in like a full game.
Yeah, it did feel a little gross that you got set bonuses.
Oh,
I don't like when games do that because so I got all the parts for the Ada kit, whatever their coffin was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just generic asshole guy. So I built out their mech, and depending on what parts, if you had all three, you got a set bonus. And I was like, that kind of forces you into a gameplay. Mm-hmm. I will say the worst rating on the gun, and they have rarity levels on all of this shit. The worse rating on the gun, the bigger the spread. I never really like that, especially for a single shot weapon, because it makes it not feel like you're actually shooting the gun. But the shotgun's very fun in this game.
Oh,
okay.
That's interesting. I never got to handle a shotgun. I think that it is so dumb that you cannot reload and dodge at the same time. Why I got 4 limbs if I can't reload and dodge at the same time?
Oh my god, right?
Why I got 4 limbs?
What's your Magus even doing?
Especially, it's a mech. A mech has, especially if a mag is an auxiliary AI that's supposed to help you multitask and be able to do these things.
What do we do?
Like
That's another thing that should be like a difference, though, if you don't have a magus, actually.
Yeah, that would be an interesting thing. Again, like all of the challenges that you have right now in your magus or in your coffin with a magus equip, that should be what it's like to play without it. And then, like, honestly, the magus is supposed to be a super cool AI. Give us Tony Hawk 2. Give us reload while dodging. Like, give us the cool shit.
Give us Metal Gear Solid 2 skateboarding minigame.
Oh my god, I forgot that. I need to go watch that video again of Snake with those sick ass rail work on a gun turret on a tank. It was fuse fighting. I do want to say, just because we should wrap this up, because I have to go watch Todd Howard's new masterpiece.
Yeah.
The Fallout television series. And I do want to just say, this one's to the listeners. I want you in your mind, imagine a world in which you create an AI companion that helps you pilot a mech, and then you let the three of us design one of them for ourselves. And imagine what that looks like, and you're correct. We're going to post them on the internet, but I just need you to know they're exactly what you're thinking, and we are true to our desires. And that's the OSG promise.
I did make the butchest magus I could before Bandai got scared.
You know I put a Dilf in a Hakama. Like, let's just get it over with.
Dilf alert.
With makeup, absolutely. And you know what? I feel like he was a friend to me, too, because I watched you stream, and I support him.
Look, they put a Seifuku in here, and they knew. They had to know. Okay.
They were like, this one is for Alice.
Oh, they had the dead mom over the shoulder hair, and I was in.
Well, this is a good segue. Alice, those were kind of your final thoughts. Brian, any final thoughts on this? Any optimism for the future? Things you'd like to see in the alpha?
I am interested on a journalistic basis in what this is going to evolve to be. I don't think this type of game has ever really been my thing.
Mm-hmm. Same.
And so, other than that, I'm kind of just good on it at this point.
Yeah, I do think we're in a difficult spot, right? Because when I think about what this game could be, I have to think about Fallout 76, and not just because Alice is being very brave and not watching Fallout to record this with us.
Can we play Fallout 76 for this podcast? Because I love that game.
I wanted to get into it, but I wanted to get into it specifically because it presented the idea that there was this big map of Appalachia, and the idea that you could explore it, you could immerse yourself in this world that was kind of in an interesting period in the Fallout franchise, lore as it stands with Bethesda, but that you could do that, and you could kind of opt in and out of whether or not you wanted to fight other players or be a raider or whatever. The pitch on that game was interesting, even with the, I think, nihilism that understandably went into gamers' reactions to the idea of a Fallout Online, right? And then the execution was bad. And that was a game that had a lot of there was a big fan base around Fallout that was ready to a certain percentage, ready to jump in there, right? They had a certain amount of buy-in with the Bethesda brand name. Bandai is coming in. They do have Bandai. They do have Gundam. They do have this kind of stuff. But I mean, considering their support of Jivo that just closed shop in a year, and I mean, I am a little worried about the ambition here and whether or not it can be competent at any one thing, including what most of its systems seems geared toward, which is creating a symbiotic relationship between yourself, your magus, and your build and everything, and going out there and getting into scraps and stuff.
Yeah.
And if they can actually execute that balanced with this story they seem to be wanting to tell, given that they don't even have what Fallout 76 had going for it, which was an incredibly good cover of Country Roads.
So, as did HoloLive English Generation Myth. That's a joke for some people.
There we go. That's for you if you got it.
To speak on that, I think I have worry for this because I could see myself wanting this as a game to play, but talking about the unceremonious way they took Jivo behind the shed and put one between the eyes, I do feel like this not being a mobile game, they are going to want to cut losses quicker than I think they're going to want to improve this.
That was what I was just thinking too. It'll be interesting to see if this game can make it out of Jivo's hulking shadow, because like the mecha Twitter community in even response to the fucking Marvel Overwatch game that's coming out, everyone's immediate reaction is, oh, like Chex Watch, is this going to last longer than Jivo? Like,
yeah. And I think there is a craving for, like, I mean, if Armored Core 6 was any indication, people want to play mech games. They want to play games that they enjoy. There are plenty of examples of, like, successful mech games.
Sure.
This could be an opportunity to capture an audience that's interested in extraction shooters, or even me, a person who wants to put on a 10-hour audiobook and just mine crystals because that doesn't bother me, and I love doing that kind of shit. Like, but you have to support it, and that's the concern.
I think also something unspoken we haven't said is we all played this on PC.
Yeah.
And this feels like a console game.
I will say
I could see this having a market on console.
I had an interesting difference, of course, because the Steam Deck is this weird hybrid where it's technically running the game. I had a very funny situation where the button prompts were for the PS5.
Good.
But I was on Steam Deck, which of course has Xbox-style button prompts, so that was a little confusing for a minute. But, like, I did have the experience of playing more in a controller layout just because the way the Steam Deck is created. I will say things like doing melee and stuff that I kind of had to tell Brian about, even though I barely got to play this game, way more intuitive on console. And yeah, like you said, I think that could be a good market for this if they take care of it.
Well, that was in fact the only reason I learned about the melee, because when I was also playing with controller, I played with controller and keyboard just to see both.
Yeah, I didn't pull out my controller because
I think controller did feel a little bit better because this game wants to give you the dodge roll with the iframe like in Dark Souls. And to me,
yes,
that's a controller situation.
So yeah, we'll see how that comes together. We'll see what kind of support it gets. I have to say, I mean, frankly, it may just be because we had this very funny situation where we watched this show and then we jokingly kind of signed up for this beta and then we got in the beta and we got to play it. I am a little invested.
Yeah, as a joke.
You know, as a bit, I am a little invested. And so, I mean, I am hoping as things tick along, if there's an opportunity for an alpha or another closed beta, I would like to see it grow. I would like to see it succeed. We've always got
to have a Price of Smiles going on in the background of our premieres. I think
that's so true.
Yeah, we always got to be able to check in on the mediocrity.
Oh, 1 second, I'm getting a call.
What?
Oh, well, you knew at the beginning you said this was going to be our foray into games journalism.
Yeah.
We got shut down.
We got.
They're closing the.
They got us?
Yeah. They aren't lasting as long as they used to. Outlets, but yeah, we got axed.
You see, Kotaku has a Gundam, and they are just sticking it on anyone else who tries to do games journalism.
Yeah, it's outside my place right now.
Oh my god, that's what that big gun is outside my window. Christ, okay.
I was like, oh, cool, the camper, and then it cocked its shotgun, and I was like, oh no, what am I, a child on a colony? Actually, wait. I'm really sorry, guys. Shar called. He's dropping a colony on the pod.
Shit.
I can't believe this is the last episode. Anyway, that has been this episode of On the Shoulders of Giants, where we discussed the Synduality Echoes of Ada closed beta test. Thanks for listening. Pilots, remember you can reach out for advice from the team at our email, questions@osgpod.com, if we haven't been flattened beneath a colony or shot point blank by a mech-sized gun. Non-pilots can send things to the same address or feedback on our social media, where the links are in the description below. Make sure to check back next week for our next mainline episode. Until then, goodbye. I love you.
Goodbye, I love you.
Goodbye. I love you.